Hi, I'm Billie Jean King, and I am thrilled to support the Sports Lawyers Association celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. The SLA's observance of this milestone are being marked with a variety of events like webinars, virtual panels, fireside chats, local outreach events, and special sessions at their annual conference. The 37 words in the federal legislation enacted in 1972 have been an absolute game changer. It eliminated classroom quotas for women, and for the first time, women received athletic college scholarships. But that doesn't mean our work is finished. So thank you for your continued commitment to protect Title IX for everyone.
Hi, and welcome to the latest installment in the Sports Lawyers Association Time for Nine series, our celebration of Title IX's 50th anniversary. I'm Ncaa Meyer, SLA's board member and chair of SLA's Time for Nine festivities. Today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. 1987, Congress passed and President Reagan signed a proclamation that the first Wednesday in February would be an official day to celebrate the accomplishments of girls and women in sports. It has evolved also to be a special day to examine challenges and encourage further progress under Title IX in achieving equality and equity in girls' sports. What's Title IX? As the great Billie Jean King just said, Title IX is a federal civil rights law enacted in 1972 that prohibits sex discrimination in schools that receive federal funding. It's only 37 words and does not even mention sports, but sports is the area where there's been the most profound impact. For example, did you know that the year before Title IX was passed that only 1 in 27 girls played sports in high school? Today it's 2 in 5. Or said in another way, in 1972, fewer than 300,000 girls played sports in high school, and now it's almost 3.5 million, so more than 10 times. Or did you know that before Title IX was passed, very few women played intercollegiate sports? In fact, the Ncaa did not even govern women's sports at that time. Now, almost 250,000 women participate in collegiate sports, and women receive almost $2 billion annually in sports scholarships. I'm sure you'll all agree that that is progress, but we have unfinished business. Women still account for only 43% of high school athletes and 44% of college athletes. Plus, in both high school and college, we see far too many disparities between girls and boys sports programs, disparities in facilities, uniforms, equipment, lower quality and number of coaches, fewer dollars spent on marketing and recruiting, and yes, still fewer scholarships. And then, as we seek to increase fandom in girls' sports, there's the chicken and egg problem. Women's sports received less than 6% of sports media coverage. So while we've made much progress, and we're here to celebrate that success big time, we need to continue to examine the challenges so that women's sports can fully capture its very promising future. We want to hear your thoughts on Title IX's successes and challenges. We encourage you to tweet what we are calling glows and grows. Glows are your or your sister's, mother's, daughter's, or friend's positive experiences in girls' sports. And grows are where you would like to see more progress. Please use hashtag SLA Time for Nine. And during our breakout sessions, we want to further discuss glows and grows. The breakouts will be attended by our interviewees and facilitated by other women's sports leaders, all of whom are on the SLA Board of Directors. We want to hear from you during these sessions. For together, let's celebrate and let's develop solutions. Finally, before I turn this event over to the 4 interviews of our featured women, SLA's Time for Nine encourages you to join our future sessions leading up to Title IX's 50th anniversary on June 23rd. We hope you will join or renew your membership in the Sports Lawyers Association so you do not miss any of this terrific content. including at our renowned annual conference. And we'll be back in person this year in Atlanta from May 12th to 14th. At the conference, you'll have lots of opportunities to network with industry leaders, attend panels and discussions on current issues in sports, and even attend a WNBA game. And by the way, to all of you students, we do have special membership and conference rates just for you. So thanks so much for joining us today. Keep supporting, celebrating, and inspiring girls and women in sports. With that, let's roll it and get started with the interviews. We're so pleased today for our first interview to have Samantha Amos, a former star Duke volleyball player who now is in law school at Suffolk University Law School in Boston and a proud member of the SLA. Samantha is interviewed by C.B. Baga, litigation associate at Faegre Drinker, a member of SLA's Next Gen and Time for X committees, and in a previous life, a professional figure skater. I'm really grateful to CB for helping us with the social media aspects of today's event. Thank you, CB.
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Samantha Amos, and I'm so excited to talk to her, about her experience. This is the Time for Nine, Title IX 50th Anniversary Series, and we are here on National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Samantha, tell us, what impact has being involved in sports had on your life?
Well, it sounds like such a simple question, but it's actually a super difficult one because sports has impacted every single thing in my life. From playing 13-year-old playing at a volleyball club called Renaissance here in Pittsburgh to then playing collegiate D1 volleyball at Duke University. There are so many lessons that it has taught me and has given me some of my best memories ever. It's also made my family extremely close, having to travel every weekend together and the countless games through college. So truly it has shaped me into the person I am today.
When you think about National Girls and Women's in Sports Day today, what does that bring for mind to you, and how will you celebrate the day?
It brings to mind not just my personal journey through sports, the ups and downs, all the memories and everything I've learned, but how far that we've came as women and continue to grow into this field. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see some incredible women trying to make a difference into this male-viewed profession, and that absolutely deserves a full day to be celebrated. So I think today I'll go back and look through the archive and try to relive some of the good memories.
How do you think opportunities have improved for women and girls in sports?
So Title IX definitely removed some barriers and has allowed girls and women plenty of more opportunities. School districts now actively promote women's and girls' sports, definitely at a younger age. And I know for sure the participation in high school sports has grown immensely. But this also reaches into the professional world. Women can now continue playing their sports as their career, or continue to go into coaching, since there are now more opportunities for that as well.
What's your favorite memory from your participation in athletics?
I don't know if I have a specific memory, but most of my favorite ones come from playing with my younger sister. She is 2 years younger than me, and I was lucky enough to play with her on the same team for club and for high school. And then what was truly special, which you don't hear about often, but I was able to play 2 years together with her at Duke University, which impacted both of us throughout more than just the sports aspect of our life, but also our personal lives together as siblings.
That's amazing. I also got to play a sport with my little sister, so I understand how special that is.
It truly is. Yeah, it's incredible.
So I think having a little sister in your sport adds to this, but what do you feel like still needs to change for women and girls in sports? When you think about your little sister, like what opportunities or support does she not have that you want her to have?
So yeah, it definitely does hit close to home. The challenges that you still see for girls and women in sports. I think the perception of women sports being less competitive is just something I would like to completely change, just because, like I've said earlier, the things that women do in this sport are incredible. Definitely the coverage of women's sports, I believe, should be increased, just to kind of use those opportunities to help build audiences for women's sports. And there's, like I said, still a little bit of downplaying of the women's accomplishments, and I might be biased, but women's accomplishments in sports are anything but average. So yeah, like I said earlier, the incredible milestones that women continue to break through, they should be talked about with excitement.
Yeah, what message do you have for young women who are interested in playing or working in sports?
In the simplest terms, absolutely involve yourself in any way that you can. The amount of lessons that I've learned through all of my teammates and my different coaches' perspectives, they've helped me so much, not just in sports, but my life outside of sports. Sports has shown me what passion was. It's given me leadership skills, communication skills, and it's really shown me what true grit and hard work means. And so that really has affected me as an athlete, but also me going into my now more so professional career. And sports has also given me the confidence to be big in rooms where women sometimes can be made to feel small. The women also that I've met in sports are incredible role models. Growing up, I just remember looking on the screen watching TV, and you have like Serena Williams, and you have women speaking on political topics as well, and they've just continued to inspire me to push through barriers.
Looking at the 50th anniversary of Title IX this year, what are the challenges that you see, legal or otherwise, remaining for women and girls in sports?
I think that also plays into the question earlier, the same thing about how we describe women in sports and how we talk about their accomplishments. And the more coverage that we give women, the more that we know about women, being able to have the opportunities to watch the women that we looked up to on TV. I think growing up, there weren't many women that I was able to watch on TV regularly as like an inspiration or a role model. There were only a few that I could pick out, but as I continue to watch sports, you have people like Maria Taylor, who now speaks on NBC Sports along with 4 or 5 other males, which is incredible to see, especially as a woman that's trying to work in the sports world. So I think just continuing to push through boundaries that have been put upon us throughout, however many years, is what's really important for me. And I think for other women and girls that are continuing to grow up, it's just having the community of watching incredible women do incredible things that really inspires you.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Samantha, and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Next, we have Jude. We're so pleased to have with us Jude, the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion of the Denver Broncos. Prior to her current position, China spent over 23 years in college athletics, both as an administrator and coach. China will be interviewed by Ty Thomas, who is the co-chair of the Sports and Entertainment practice of the Mintz Law Firm, as well as chair of the Mintz Diversity Committee. And Ty, a member of SLA's Time for Nine committee, was instrumental in putting together today's program. Thank you, Ty.
Good afternoon. This is part of the SLA Time for Nine series, 50th anniversary of Title IX. We thank you for joining us for the celebration of National Girls and Women's Sports Day. I am honored to be joined right now by Jude, who is the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion of the Denver Broncos. So welcome, China. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, just to start off with, you've been involved with now the NFL and have had a storied career involved in college athletics. What impact has being involved in sports had in your life?
A tremendous impact. I remember when my brother, who was a a year older than me, taught me how to play basketball in the basement of our house. And so in those teachings, I built up the confidence to be challenged in just a lot of areas of my life. And just the exposure to sports allowed me to meet people, to travel, to build that confidence, to even get a scholarship at 15 years old, where I had the opportunity to play Division I volleyball, and moved on to working in a coaching capacity, to administration, and now the NFL. So it has been the forefront of my entire life, along with my family and my creator. But I really owe a lot to sport.
I appreciate you actually mentioning your kind of progress in that. How do you think, looking back, opportunities have improved for women and girls in sports?
They have improved significantly. I remember when I was about, I think I was 10 years old. And I believe this was in 1975. So this was a couple of years after Title IX. And I remember one of my classmates actually trying out for the basketball team. She was the only female that tried out for the boys basketball team. I remember as a little girl saying, "You're not allowed to play basketball with the boys," because we never saw it. I mean, just Title IX was just passed a couple of years before that. And seeing her not only try out, but to make the team and be successful, actually evolved into what is happening now when it comes to sports. So women are getting more involved and engaged, not only as players, but coaches, ownership, executive leadership positions. I mean, it has significantly evolved, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
Well, kind of taking the forward thinking part of that, as you looking back to look forward, reflecting on Title IX and its impact, what things would you like to see change for women and girls in sports?
I think right now, with us being the year 2022, we shouldn't still be talking about being the firsts or the only. I know that just during my journey, at least on 12 different occasions, I've been the first woman or the first woman of color in something. And I just look forward to the opportunity that we can get out of being the first, and for it to turn into that this is considered to be a consistent norm in this particular industry, regardless of the level.
I'm curious as to what you would consider your favorite memory from your participation in sports, or even, your favorite moment in women's sports generally. What would those be?
Wow. That is very difficult to pinpoint it. But I am going to celebrate the historical significance of, our great pioneers such as Billie Jean King, when it came to that competition on the court, the battle of the sexes. I remember that as a little girl, but I'm going to even now fast forward all the way to today, when the WNBA's Atlanta Dream took on a social justice battle and really made a significant difference in the state of Georgia. I mean, we can contribute to a lot of things. We can utilize sports as our platform to speak on a lot of social justice issues, economic issues, education. I mean, it really can make a significant difference as we're getting more and more women involved.
With this event being celebrating National Women, Girls, and Sports Day, I'm curious what that day brings to mind for you, and how would you celebrate it? How will you celebrate it?
It's a celebration of us. It's a celebration of girls and women excellence on and off the field, the court, the pool, the playing ground. It gives us the opportunity to introduce and reintroduce the contributions that we can make in this industry and beyond, and how some of our greatest leaders were athletes. They started out as athletes. Many of them are still working in the athletic setting. And so I just really believe that it gives us the opportunity to continue to unlock our potential as we're growing in this space.
So as we're having this discussion, I'm sure that there's a number of aspiring young women who are participating in athletics or interested in working in sports, and they're looking at you right now and saying, wow, this is awesome and this is impressive. What advice would you have for women who are interested in participating in athletics or working in sports?
I'm going to say continue to be your authentic self. What happens is at times as women, we have a tendency of shifting to meet the expectations or the perceptions of others. And that's not fair to us. As long as we continue to speak our truth and talk about our journeys and not apologize for that, and even speak of our passions and not apologize for our feelings towards whatever that we're feeling, I think that that's really important. Because at the end of the day, we have to continue to look at ourselves in the mirror. And even in my particular situation, when I spoke on diversity, equity, and inclusion, when I was working in the intercollegiate space, it was told that I should not speak on these particular issues because I would not be hired, or people would not consider me for future employment. But I stayed true to myself. I was very strategic on how I conveyed information and making sure that when I spoke to diverse audiences and to create those safe spaces to receive information back. But I stayed my authentic self, and I'm really fortunate and blessed that I did, because the Denver Broncos hired me for who I am, along with what I can bring to the table for this organization.
That's a very interesting point you raised about, being in college athletics and how we are now 50th year of Title IX. What are the challenges that you see now, remaining for women and girls in sports, whether legal or otherwise? What are the challenges you do see now?
Yeah, I think that there's still some challenges in terms of the stereotypes of what women can and cannot do. There are certain professions that I've been told, even personally, on why it could be a challenge for me moving forward in certain spaces. Here I am working in football. I know that football finance and fundraising, what I would consider as the 3 Fs, are sometimes those particular areas where women are not always invited to. So you have to continue to network and to make sure that you are educated and any of those 3, if not all 3 of those particular areas, to show that you do belong in the space. And not only once you get yourself in, you have to continue to become a student of the industry, so you can not only stay in it to be retained, but to advance in it. So I think that those are some of those stereotypes and challenges that women face when it comes to not only those 3 areas, but other areas such as coaching or officiating, or those areas where there's, of course, predominantly men in there. But we're making strides. We are making strides. But I'm going to always refer back to, if you continue to be your authentic self and you're passionate about it, continue to chip away slowly, and eventually some doors will open when you're positioning yourself the right way.
I want to close by, going to, now that you've progressed and you're in a fantastic position now, leading DEI with the Denver Broncos. The term diversity champion or champion of equity is often overused. And I'm sure that we have a number of people who are watching that want to know, how can I be a better champion for gender equity? Like, what types of things can I do to be a better support system, a better, conduit to help the next 50 years under Title IX? What advice would you give for those folks?
I would say continue to surround yourself with individuals who can support your passion in the space. Make sure that not only you're a good educator, but also be a good listener. And being a good listener is having the opportunity to hear from people who do not think like you or even look like you. That's really important. Those spaces are extremely important because not everyone is going to embrace diversity, equity, inclusion in the same way. Also understand diversity means a lot of different things for different people. So whether it's based upon gender or sexual orientation or veteran status or physical abilities or hidden abilities, it's just going to vary across the board. So it's not just an ethnicity or race issue, it's diversity all across the board. And to talk about and learn strategies on how to make those spaces equitable. And so that's the reason why being a student in this space is very important. And with that, being a part of creating some processes and hopefully at one day some policies that makes a significant difference, whether it's through the local government or federal government, or even in your own company or institution. That can make a significant difference too. So I kind of see the framework of diversity, equity, inclusion on awareness, education, processes, policies, and then profits. And profits is about finance. We know that you need the right resources. So to be a part of assisting in generating revenue and expanding those particular resources and getting women and ethnic minority businesses involved and engaged in many of these opportunities to really build this diversity, equity, inclusion space. So much to do. It's not going to happen overnight. There's many ways that a person can enter, and there's definitely many strategies a person can take in order to move the needle forward when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Fantastic insights. I thank you for your time. Best of luck to you. Congratulations, by the way, on completing your first season out in Denver. And we hope to have you in part of these discussions as we move forward.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next, here to help us celebrate National Girls and Women in Sports Day is Melissa Goldenberg. Melissa is a senior vice president and general counsel of the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Talking Stick Resort Arena, where she oversees all legal aspects of each of these entities. Melissa is interviewed by Pam Lester, president of Lester Sports Entertainment. Pam also was COO and Senior Vice President of Business Affairs and General Counsel for Time Warner Sports. Plus, Pam was the first female president of the Sports Lawyers Association.
Welcome, Melissa. My name is Pam Lester, and I am a former president of the Sports Lawyers Association. And thank you so much for taking the time to help us celebrate National Girls and Women's in Sports Day as part of the Sports Lawyers Association Time for 9 celebration 50 years of Title IX. I'm so happy you can be here. And just for those, I know that Jema has given you a great introduction, but I just want to mention that you're the Senior Vice President, General Counsel of the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Footprint Center. So welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Pam. I'm so excited to be here. I always love any opportunity to be a part of the Sports Lawyers Association, and also hugely excited about celebrating National Girls and Women in Sports Day. It's a holiday that I hope we continue to celebrate. So I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I'm very happy to have you as a senior woman in the professional sports world. And I understand that although you didn't play sports, that you are a very active soccer mom, which I think is awesome. So maybe talk a little bit about the opportunities for your children in sports and what values you think that participating in sports brings to them.
Well, I do like to say one of my favorite titles is Proud Sports Mom. Both of my kids have played club soccer for many years. I'm ashamed to admit I have maybe been ejected from a game or two for being an overly passionate fan. But I do love watching them, and especially my daughter, who's 14, watching the experience they have and learning about teamwork is something that I have no doubt will benefit them when they're my age and when they're older. And, you know, getting to watch a teenage girl have a built-in squad behind her who, like, you rise and fall together as a team is something that I wish I had that experience of. And I'm just really happy that, you know, to get to work in that environment at a professional level, because I think we all learn so much from participating in team sports, being, you know, an active player, but also getting to watch team sports and women's sports in particular. So, you know, it's something that I get tremendous pride and enjoyment out of, and could probably spend the rest of this webinar talking about my kids' soccer experiences, which is not why everyone's here.
Well, I'm interested. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that you're very interesting that as a senior executive in the professional sports world, you're general counsel and SVP of both the men's and women's professional basketball team. And I'm just curious because, you know, Title IX was you know, when it was started 50 years ago, we're still trying to address the gender equity issues, and all those who followed the Ncaa basketball tournament were well aware of, you know, and also the you know, during the bubble, as you had mentioned to me when we spoke before, between the NBA and the WNBA. So I'm curious how you see the men and women teams being handled, and, you know, in terms of equity in your organization.
Yeah, and, you know, I have to say, I can't speak on how many companies definitively are, but I know we're in the minority that we own both the NBA team and the WNBA team, and we have a combined business operations, right? So I am the general counsel for both. Our chief revenue officer is the chief revenue officer for both. Our head of HR oversees both, right? It is something ingrained in our corporate culture, is the importance of the Suns and also the Mercury. And just from a timing standpoint, when I started at the Suns in the summer of 2014, and I'm sure our Suns and Mercury, see, I just messed it up myself. But as you may recall, the Phoenix Mercury are WNBA champs from 2014. So my first season, we won the championship. So, you know, for us, our Mercury have been at, you know, a sustained high level, and something we have tremendous pride in. And you can't walk into our building without, like, being in awe of, you know, Diana Taurasi, who I will dispute everyone is the greatest of all time. She's the greatest basketball player of all time. So getting to walk into our office and see her picture everywhere really is inspiring, and it sets the tone for our organization. You know, like everywhere, we're always striving to do better, to be the best, right? Best in class. And, you know, that's true for the men's and the women's. And just, you know, we're not always perfect, right? So, you know, one example, we built this beautiful practice facility in Phoenix, and it's state of the art, significantly over budget, and really amazing. And it is for the Suns and the Mercury. And when we first built it and we had all the plans drawn and everyone approved it, you know, when the construction was done and you walked through the locker rooms, you saw there was a significant difference in size, right? The amenities were largely the same, but the size of the men's locker room was much bigger than the women's. And less than 6 months after we completed construction, our owner noticed it, as did obviously, you know, the Suns and the Mercury and everyone. He tore it down. I mean, not the whole facility, sorry, let me clarify, but like tore down the area to expand the women's locker room, you know, right at the start of the Mercury season, because we all wanted everyone to feel this equal sense of pride in both teams. So it's really something that is ingrained in our culture, and something we're always trying to, you know, continue to do better when there's areas of improvement.
So that's a really interesting story. How about the Suns? Were they supportive of making their locker room smaller and the Mercury locker room bigger, or they made also Mercury
I think
is bigger?
Just because of location, it didn't impact the Suns locker room. It impacted, I believe, part of the training room, maybe. I'm not sure what was there before we tore down that wall, to be honest, but it wasn't the Suns locker room. But they have been, it's actually really one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen was at the end of the WNBA season 2021. The Mercury were going to the championship. Right after the Suns went to the NBA championship, the Mercury go to the WNBA championship. And from a timing standpoint, it was also the start of the NBA preseason. So the Suns had a Lakers preseason game right when the Mercury qualified for the championship. And working with the WNBA and the NBA, and James Jones took the lead on this. We rescheduled our Suns preseason game. So the Suns and the Lakers played at 3 p.m. We had a doubleheader. So watching Chris Paul, Devin Booker, LeBron James on the Mercury home court was like profoundly impactful. And having the NBA team say, don't worry about it, we'll play at 3 p.m. That's, them taking the lead on making it happen. And this was the days up to the game. And, I think most people could understand how hard it is to change a game schedule. They did it, and it was unbelievable to see. It was
I think
amazing.
That's so important, because impact change is not just women, it's men supporting women. And
exactly.
I think that is something that's so, that's very important that happens, and, and a great example. I have another question for you too. Do you see any, I'd be surprised if there were, but are there different legal issues? Because I wonder if the law students be interested in representing the men's teams and the women's teams?
The specific legal issues that would be different are more often than not just based on the nature of the collective bargaining agreement for each, right? And there's a little differences in that. But generally, no, it's the same legal issues that, that come up for each. Maybe different fan bases and different issues that impact the fans from a business standpoint. But it's, largely the same legal issues.
And hopefully one day the revenue will be the same for each. I think that's
we're getting there.
That we aspire to.
I have to also give the Mercury props for a second, because this year we signed the largest team WNBA deal when Bally's became the sports betting partner of the Mercury. We have FanDuel as a proud partner of the Suns and our sports betting partner at the Suns, but Mercury came in because they really wanted to be a part of a women's team.
Well, I think, we have such a short amount of time to speak. I'd love to go on and on. No, that's okay. But, I just think it's you illustrate so well what happens when there is, really working hard to achieve gender equity, and that, that there's a future here. So I just wonder, and also because we're speaking to law students today, and there are going to be breakout sessions afterwards, but if you have suggestions on how law students can get involved and, and just to sort of support the cause, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of teams, leagues, law firms have, diversity, equity, and inclusion internships, right? So I would try to actively seek those out. We participate both at the league level and, with various law firms in the area on those types of internships. I would definitely look at those. And then I'd also say, just make sure you surround yourself with good people and people who believe in the same things you believe in. Because then you'll be surprised, right? When you build your own squad, what you can do.
Yeah, that's something I truly believe in. And I also think that our own reputations are so important, and that we have that, that control. And I know that so many are eager to get in the sports business and take any job, but I think it's important that you take a job that aligns with your own values.
Exactly.
Okay, so since we only have 10 minutes, I think we've done our 10 minutes. Is there anything else? I mean, I would love to spend a couple hours with you. I think we could really
ditto.
Talk
we
about
would have so much
many
fun.
Issues. Yeah, exactly. But I think you're just a great illustration of a woman in a very senior position working for both men's and women's teams, and of course the facility itself, and that you're so fortunate to work for an employer who really is working to treat everyone equally, and that's fantastic. Is there anything that you wanted to add in closing?
No, just I encourage anyone, if you're in the Phoenix area, come check out our Phoenix Mercury. You can call me and I'm happy to take you. And I think you will be both inspired and moved at how far and how amazing our women's teams can be.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. It's sort of funny just to do the 10 minutes here, but thank you, Melissa. And it was great to hear about how your office operates and how determined you are and your employer to achieve equity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We now have, to help us celebrate Title IX and its 50th anniversary, Ncaa King. Ncaa is Duke University Director of Athletics, Vice President and Adjunct Professor of Business Administration. She is the first woman to hold the AD position at Duke and only the third Black woman to hold the AD position at a Power 5 school. Ncaa is interviewed by Gabe Feldman, the director of the Tulane Sports Law Program, the Garner Professor of Sports Law, the Barron Professor of Law, and the Associate Provost for NCAA Compliance at Tulane. Gabe also is a longtime board member of the SLA and is vice chair of the Time for Nine committee.
Hi, Ncaa. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hi, Gabe. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. So we are here to celebrate National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. And before we celebrate the broad day, I want to celebrate you a little bit as being the newest athletic director at Duke and being the first Black female athletic director at Duke. And I want to ask you a question to start off. Tell us how you went from being a middle school and high school student who wanted to be a lawyer, didn't play organized sports, was a ballet, jazz, and tap dancer, and was the self-described worst athlete in your family, to becoming the athletic director at one of the most prominent programs in the country.
Still the worst athlete in my family. And now that I have kids and a husband that played college and professional sports, I even moved lower down on the athletic ability in my family. But just so grateful to be in the career that I am and working in sports, because it's been so such a great journey and so fulfilling in so many different ways. So I did my undergrad at Notre Dame, and everybody there played sports or did something around sport. And I thought, well, I don't want to get left out, so let's try this. And I was a student manager in undergrad. And really that's where my passion for working in this business really developed, and had some really great experiences around student athletes and coaches and obviously administrators, and learned kind of behind the scenes what goes on into running a college athletics program. And fast forward a few years, and here we are. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
I thought that maybe you were just going to say Tulane Law School was how you did it, but we'll save that conversation for another day. But
yeah.
So National Girls and Women's Sports Day, tell me what it means to you in the position you are now and thinking back to your journey.
Yeah, I mean, what a great way to recognize what sport has done for girls and women around our country. National Girls and Women in Sport Day it's so fun to honor girls and women and honor the progress we've made, I think, but also while still recognizing the need to continue to pave the way for girls and women to achieve equality and ultimately success in sport. And so it's nice to have a day to recognize it. But I think like many other topics around activism, we can't take our foot off the gas and need to continue to recognize how we can create opportunities for girls and women to be successful in sport and ultimately in life.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how now in your position at Duke, you are working to help create those opportunities, both to play and then also to be in your position or other positions off the playing field.
Yeah, well, at Duke, we have 750 student athletes, and we're roughly 50-50 male and female. We've got 27 sports and 13 women's sports competing at the highest level and at an incredible institution. And so it is my responsibility to ensure that we're providing meaningful, rich academic and athletic experiences for our student athletes, again, half of which are female, and to recognize recognize how important they are to not just our athletics program, but to Duke University as a whole. Our staff, we've got 350 full-time staff and almost 1,000 part-time staff. And again, we need to recognize our women and make sure that we're creating opportunities, making sure that our hiring practices are diverse, from every level, interns to mid-management, assistant coaches, head coaches, senior leaders. And I do focus on that to ensure that our staff population is representative for our student athletes, the people that we are educating, mentoring, so that they can see that, that they are represented in the folks that are leading them every day.
Great. And what, in terms of the NCAA more broadly, what changes do you see coming for women's sports at the NCAA level? What changes do you think should be coming? And what do you think about the recent rule changes around NIL, around the transfer portal? Is it good for women's sports, bad for women's sports, or neutral on women's sports?
Well, Gabe, we only have 10 minutes. That's like a 4-beer conversation.
That was the worst question. That was such a compound question. Take any part of it you want.
Sure. Well, I'm so fortunate to have had a front row seat to a lot of, I would say, bumps in the road, but paving the way for progress as chair of the Division I Women's Basketball Committee last year, where obviously we had an NCAA women's tournament that was very subpar and not a great experience for our female student athletes. But then I have the opportunity to chair the committee again this year and getting ready for changes on the biggest stage for Division I women's basketball student athletes. And I think what that has done is really created a roadway to ensuring that all female student athletes in the NCAA organization are having equitable experiences with their male counterparts. This year's women's championship, the Final Four will be in Minneapolis, and everybody can expect to see a lot of great enhancements. We're already seeing things like March Madness being able to be utilized by the women's championship. The tournament field has expanded from 64 to 68, just like the men, creating equitable number of participation opportunities. And then around the championship, we'll have enhanced signage and just making sure that, student athletes are receiving the same kind of swag bags, if you will. So that's been a fun to be a part of change. Like I said, it was a little bit turbulent last year, and it really has been, not just last year, but leading up to what we experienced in San Antonio. There's been a lot of behind the scenes, some really kind of inequitable goings on, if you will, around the NCAA. So I'm glad that's come to light. And so while it was bumpy and painful in the moment last year, we really are seeing some visible changes in the NCAA, and not just around women's basketball. We received a gender equity report from Kaplan Hecker, and that group really shined the light on women's basketball, but then went deeper into the NCAA championships around all female sports. So that's been exciting to see. For the fans, we've seen they like to be exposed to women's sports, increased TV ratings in basketball and softball and other sports. There was record attendance at the NCAA Volleyball Championship last December. So the fans are interested and engaged in women's sports, and we need to continue to provide for them those experiences around women's sport.
Great, thank you. And see, you didn't need 10 minutes. You got that all in. And what about the rules changes that we're seeing now around NIL and transfer portal? Is that having any different impact on women's sports, or is really just it's impacting college athletes as a whole?
I think it's impacting college athletes as a whole, but the good thing is it is impacting female student athletes. I think there was some concern that only high-profile male student athletes in football and men's basketball would receive opportunities. But I can really mainly speak to Duke. Our female student athletes are receiving opportunities. They are receiving money compensation, being fairly compensated for what they're doing in terms of building their brand and utilizing their name, image, and likeness. And so it's exciting. It's exciting for all of our student athletes. And I'm really especially pleased that our female student athletes are having the same opportunities as our men are.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that the data, the most recent data, it's obviously still very early, is that football players are getting the most revenue, but women's basketball players are number 2, which I think has pleasantly surprised a lot of people. Obviously, still lots of time, things can change, but that's a good early sign at least. So there's improvement. There have been changes. You mentioned the issues around the women's Final Four. And I think part of what became clear is that at least some of that was unintentional. But that's not really an excuse, is that we should realize that they're not being treated as well as the men's Final Four. And so we're seeing lots of improvements across the board there. The fact that you're in this position, that Carla Williams is at UVA, that Candace Story, we're seeing more and more females and Black females have the AD jobs, and particularly at the Power 5 level. But as you mentioned earlier, we still have a long way to go. What do you see as the biggest challenges that are out there still, despite Title IX and everything, all the progress remaining for women and girls in sports?
Sure. Well, again, another 4-beer conversation, but the challenges will turn them into opportunities. It is making sure that we're providing opportunities, that we've got people in the right seats to continue to push, to provide those opportunities, and then ultimately do so. We saw the University of Central Florida's report card come out this week on college athletics and hiring practices, and unfortunately, gender diversity for college athletics departments received a very low, I believe even an F grade in terms of who we're hiring for leadership positions. Racial diversity is getting a little bit better, but not great. And so, things like that, we need those types of reports to continue to hold ourselves accountable and make sure that, we see where we are and kind of outline the steps on how we can get better and ultimately do so. I'm really proud to be at Duke, where our president recognizes the need for gender and racial diversity. Our president's cabinet is made up of a very diverse group of senior leaders here at Duke. And so I'm sitting in this seat and have the opportunity again to continue to create change and have an opportunity to hire men and women, people of color in positions of leadership here. So we like I said, we got to keep our foot on the gas and continue to move towards progress.
Great. And final question. We've got lots of young lawyers, young law students who are watching. What's your message for young women who are interested in working in sports?
I mean, it is simple. Dream big and have aspirations to do something great in sport or wherever your career journey may take you. Because I'm proof that dreaming big, opportunities do come along. Grab a hold of them and work really hard to get there. It takes a lot, but if you dream big, work hard, you will be ultimately where your career journey, your career aspirations lie.
Great. Thanks, Ncaa. So, and just to sum up, dream big, go to Tulane Law School, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. The Nina King story.
Exactly.
Well, Ncaa, thank you so much for your time. You are an inspiration. It's incredible to have seen this part of your journey. Can't wait to see what you do next as the AD at Duke. And we can't thank you enough for your time, and look forward to talking to you in the breakout sessions.
Thanks, Gabe. It's great to be with you.
Be well.
Thanks.
So those were all marvelous interviews. I want to thank you so much for participating. Now we'd like to start the second part of today's program and go into breakout rooms.